Gentlemen, welcome back to the shop. The cornucopia of cargo cult consumerism has castigated us once again, only this time the proper beaver has landed. Erblicken das schön Fräulein Fein aus Stuttgart, the mother of all oscillating tools, the OG orange German oscillating tool. And with all due piety, respect, bowing and scraping to the patron saint of teardowns, I did not take it apart before I let her chooch. You'll recall the fucking fiasco of taking, oh, I can't even. Some damn keener glued, screwed, and tattooed all this sheeting down. It just doesn't end. I have to scrape it after all.
Hello, Papa.
Hi, chickadee.
Hi, Dolly.
Fighting.
Beep. Oh. Helping, Papa.
Are you gonna help me? The floor finally succumbed under a fortnight of scorching French cussing. Like the last time you swore off tequila, let's never speak of this again. Let us now channel our inner 9-year-old, our yellow eyes gleaming under the covers whilst we gleefully dismantle our father's radio. We know, well, we think we know, the last time that one of these got taken apart. Now, there's a whole tool fetishism here involved, and I'm getting excited because I know that these are fucking good tools, and there's always a lovely human touch that we see. There's a thoughtful little touch, so I'm really excited to see that people can still make super skookum stuff and still make a profit out of it, even though it's maybe a little bit more expensive than the home gamer stuff. It's nice to see sometimes you do get what you pay for. Now, on the other side of that, are you a pro? Do you really need this? Chances are, like, I use this 3 fucking times, right? I could have gone away with a Princess Auto Power Fister. However, I am a weak and petty man, and I do have my vices. And tools of all creeds and colors are the vice that we all hold fast in. Although, you never know, it might be a total piece of junk. Now, that dirty cork stuffer, that'll bite you. Now, last night I did a quick in and out on a tin bashing job, and fuck me, partner. I mean, my alabaster, silky, soft skin, my wife loves my soft hands. I wasn't going to say anything, but for that matter, so does your wife. I don't know how you guys do it, man. Just chowdered right to fuck. There you go. Cat's away, the mice will play. The old wife fired up the personal massager, apparently. Oh, there. She's all done. On with the show. So as we can see here, the cord, 18 wire gauge, and service junior SJ, so that just means 300 volts. Nothing special about this cord. It is, let's see, Lucky United, CSA branded, 60C. Now, so the insulation is quite, well, that's the lowest pretty much insulation you're going to get, 60C. However, this has a speed controller, so it's got soft start, so inrush current, and inrush current doesn't really create that much heat anyway because it's instantaneous, but it does feel quite skookum. And double insulated, polarized. Same disease, I got the same guy on the sticker station as the last Fein. We took apart a grinder. 0 fucks given on the label. It's all sidewards. I mean, all it takes is a jig to put that on straight. These are shitty labels as well. They're all shitty on these tools, but I'll tell you why they're shitty, because any kind of solvent on there wipes them right off. You remember the good old days when they would have metal tags, either brass, even aluminum's not great, but stainless steel, and they'd all be punched. That way, when the tool or the piece of equipment got down the road 5 years and you needed a part, you'd actually be able to read the fucking part number. Of course, that's been a victim of shrinking profit margins, or increasing profit margins. My mistake. Okay, we're into the meat of her, and got some desiccated schmoo there. Now I know why you want to take it apart first. Of course, at least this isn't human flex. Looks like gypsum drywall dust, so not gonna kill me. And here we have the plastic over molded, the butylene rubber, very nice, fairly stiff, nice reinforcing in through here. A lot of details on this mold. Look at this. This would definitely be a long shot time, and they would take their time to make this shot because that mold is very expensive. Clearly, look at all the work. Whoever the toolmaker was, probably more than one of them, whole team of them. Yeah, they do nice work. Clearly, PA6 GF30, so that's PA6 is nylon and glass fiber filled 30%. Somebody who's in the industry took me to task, said it's not reinforcing, it's filling. And we see here the slash with the overmolding sebs. So this butylene compound is styrene with the butylene compound and a styrene on the other end. That makes it very abrasion resistant. So a very nice material on that. And yeah, I wouldn't quite say stiff as a wedding prick, but maybe if you had a couple too many whiskeys, just about get you there. Good enough for the girls I go out with anyway. However, I kind of get the inkling that my wife is doing a Hitachi magic wand teardown upstairs. Now, obvious to the most casual of observers is there's no dust mitigation, so just whatever raw dust is going through here, the only thing you're really concerned about is the brushes and the commutator assembly, which will wear if there's abrasive particles in there, because the brushes, of course, are lubricating and they sheen over. Sorry. It's just that ever since I've been moved out here on the left coast, there's a semi-infamous river, whitewater rafting, and it's a native word, and the word is cum sheen. So anytime I say sheen, it's like a little kid saying bum or nipple. Yeah. Yes, I am 11 years old. There's a lot of really cool place names here in Canada. Head Smashed In, Buffalo Jump, 100 Mile House, Moose Jaw, Dildo, Blow Me Down. In this country, not only do we have a long line of popular songstresses, I'm talking Shania Twain, that other one, Justin Bieber. We also have a long and illustrious line of bumblefucks misnoming things. On the other side of clamshell, well, it's actually in both sides, my mistake, we have the switch actuation, and it's very tight in there. So if you ever have a problem where you can't get the thing to chooch, you might want to take that apart and clean up the schmoo. Likely that'll collect stuff. I mean, it's good that it's nice and tight because it feels skookum, right? But at the same time, just warning you, it probably could get packed with wood dust or bleh. Here we got the controller. It's completely potted, so can't see much in the way of components, but we'll be able to check it on the oscilloscope. This looks like a rotary encoder, 3/4 of a turn, maybe 25 position. Why is it that it always only goes to 6? Wow, is there something I'm missing? Why wouldn't it go to 11? And here's the main switch. There's a fair detent in there. Makes it feel snappy action, but I believe it's just the detent clicking over. 8 amp at 125 volts. You can see there's some TO220 components there. That's probably, I don't know what that would be. Actually, and I can't push it over. It might be a voltage regulator. It's not heat sinked, so it could very well be just a 5-volt voltage regulator to feed this. Or it could be some sort of triac. Now, this is a very interesting arrangement to get the pixies where they need to go. Some sort of, oh yeah, you push this down and then they'll pull out. Nice. That's definitely not a cheap arrangement. Some sort of proprietary clamping device in there, and some nice ferrules on there. What for preventing stray wires from getting out from betwixt the bikini line. Now, a word on these. Normally I don't like to see this type of spring clamping arrangement in a mechanical vibration prone device. In an electrical enclosure or something, that's one thing, but because you're relying on a spring tension of a piece of metal, and it gets hot, it gets cold, it fatigues, it doesn't seem to me as positive a connection as a screw terminal, because as you know, a screw terminal, when you screw it down, you have, like, out of a tiny little fastener, you can get 1,000 pounds of clamping. Not a problem, right? We'll try and get 1,000 pounds of clamping out of a tiny little tab spring that's like this, you know? Is it good enough? Very likely. Is it the best way to do it? No. It's the best way for fast assembly, mind you. Moving on, we can see the care taken and the thoughtfulness put into designing this product. Of course, this is the flagship of the fleet. It just barely fits inside the enclosure. There's very little wasted space, and I just noticed this, a feature I haven't seen on any other tool. Urethane foam shock absorbers. Because this is oscillating back and forth, they add shock absorbers so that isolates the vibrating part from your hand. It's not perfect isolation, but that will absorb a lot of the vibration. This is the beauty of in-house manufacturing. These motors, Fein's claim to fame is that they make all their components in-house, and we can see absolutely that's the case, because these dampeners, is it moist? No, are built right in-house. They're molded right into the bearing housing. Now, this will be interesting. At the risk of making things go springen, with their finger poking, I don't know what's in here. So, yeah, there might be a Jesus kip. That's why I got two eyes, though. Okay, let's look at the bearing. This is a shielded bearing, not sealed. So that will allow the ingress of dirt. Of course, there's no way around that, because if you had a seal on there, it would overheat. There'd be too much. It just would not last. So, it's a special kind of bearing. You can see it's real sloppy. So the tolerances are not the tolerances, but the sizing is actually sloppy. And that's a special bearing that they put on motors. You'll see that in big motors, little motors. What that allows is that when it actually gets up to operating temperature, then the clearances are correct. But prior to it getting up to temperature, it's hot dog down a hallway style. You just got to throw it in and hope you're hitting the sides until it warms up enough, and then the clearances shrink up, and then you actually get it to have the proper running clearance. Now we see the commutation bars. We can see the brushes have that serrated wear-in pattern. No epoxy here at the connection point. That's very surprising to me that they wouldn't put epoxy. Of course, that's the weak point. It gets hot, gets cold, lots of tiny little high frequency vibrations, and copper, it work hardens. So that's one of the problems with copper, is that as it works, it gets hardened, ergo it gets brittle and breaks off. So normally, lately in tools we've been taking apart, we have seen they mitigate that by adding epoxy. They haven't done that here. As you can see, balanced the living fuck right out of the armature. Now, do you see something I don't see? Yeah, that's right. There is no magnet there's no magnet ring here to control the speed. I wonder if they're using back EMF through the brushes or something in order to control the speed. There's no sensor here. Normally we would see a magnet ring, and it would be like a printed, multi-segment magnet that would white pass to Hall effect and give pulses, or just white pass an inductor to give us an overall voltage. But there's nothing like that on this. Weird. Some new form of devilry. Now this is interesting. We haven't seen a fan this good on a tool ever. Maybe, well, other than of course the Dyson $500 blow job, but that was something else entirely. They've clearly done a lot of confuser simulation for airflow, and very skookum robust impeller there. I don't know if you'd call that a ducted fan on account of it being in the enclosure here, but if you look at that, that's fancy. Somebody did some work to that. Now the gearbox arrangement, I don't know how it works, but we can infer that it's a 1-to-1 because we get one rip'em and we get one chooch, one full chooch here. So that is a 1-to-1. That means this motor is probably spinning at 20,000 rip'ems on account of this choochin. To and frowards 20 kilocycles per minute. A bit of a dilemma here. How do we get in here? There's no fasteners to speak of. Just this little detent spring. And I don't see any down the hole. Maybe in here under the... no. This is a cast aluminum housing, and then it's powder coated. Nice thick powder coating on there. And I do not know how to get in there. We'll have to have a look at the old confuser after the dinner bell rings. This thing, however, look at this. One piece assembly. Glass fiber filled, 70% PA6. And then this looks, the brush holders look like some sort of phenolic. So thermoset plastic that will not melt. It'll burn. Of course, that's the best. You don't want your brush holders. In the cheaper tools, the brush holders would be nylon. Nylon, of course, melts. You don't want things melting when they're subject to hot temperatures. This is a contractor grade tool, and I assume that, well, any contractor I've seen, they get their plug nickels worth of every tool. That is to say, they give her a hot supper, and you wouldn't want, mid-stroke this thing leaking the brush holders right out of the side. We're at 860 degrees Frankenstein, and the brush holders, not even touching it. Of course, right through the nylon, but you can hear that. You hear that scraping? Right here, right full of glass. I'll take the ducting off. That's surprising to me. There's no epoxied field windings. This machine is designed to rattle your fillings. That's its intended purpose. You would think that this would be epoxied. Now they're not loosey-goosey in there, but there's no real solid epoxy. Maybe there's a situation where it's better not to epoxy things because it gets too rigid and it's better just to sort of float around. Longevity-wise though, my gut tells me these would be better off epoxied. And looking at the magnet wire, it's tiny, like tiny, surprisingly small. Mind you, this tool is not a high amp tool. Yeah, 10th thou. What? I don't even know what that is. It may be smaller than 30 for sure. I guess it doesn't draw very many amps, and it's got the soft start, of course. But the back of the housing doesn't have any nitrile Buna N rubber condom on here. More than likely they were relying on, well, this thing, I mean, it's just a rattle trap, but it's also probably extremely well balanced. Further on the stator, you can see electrically attached is some sort of mitigation for static, I believe. Of course, there's no way for this is a double insulated tool. There potentially could be a charge buildup on the bearings from all this thing chooching around, so I would think that feeds in. Unfortunately, it's all potted, but it does feed in to here. Is it grounding for the stator? Is it mitigation for damage from arc through, back EMF and eddy current and all that sort of stuff going through the bearings? Got to be something like that. That's the kind of little touch that you do not see on prosumer tools. Hello, ma chérie. Comment ça va?
Papa, don't have cookies?
Yes!
Oh, don't you eat cookies?
Yes, please.
Mama is gonna cool them down.
Cool them down. Okay,
Yeah.
so can I come up in like 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Y'all heard the lady? They're making cookies up there, what, for celebrating Christmas? So, gonna go get fat and ugly. Look at this. Scabby motherfuckers. Some poor designer caught cancer over this. Tri-wing fastener. Why'd you pay more money for a fastener that Joe Public can't get into, you know? Like, is your design that fucking bad? Apparently so. Sean crapped out, took out the breaker, turned off the confuser. Anyway, just another day, man. Just another day. Safety squints! Surprise, surprise, surprise. Actually got some components on there. No surprise. Smells of shrimp ramen, holy Chet brand prune candy, and cancer. No shit stains though. No fixing that now. Widlerized. Proper. I stalled out, so I snuck out there to the confuser and have a look. I gotta say, beautiful documentation on the Fein website. It's so refreshing to see good, solid documentation. Especially like in heavy industry, you're familiar, you commission a $10 million piece of gear, and the fucking documentation is so bad. You figure that the people who made it would stroke out if they ever even saw the machine in real life. Like, it's so bad, and it's getting worse. It used to be you could get printouts, you know, you'd have hard copy of all the documentation. Now it's all hyperlinked and it's in the cloud, and it's so fucking terrible. It's getting to the point now where a customer can't maintain their, you know, and we see this, I read about this in the agricultural business where farmers, small-time farmers, they can't even, they're not even allowed to fix their own tractors. They have to. They must call the dealer. They don't have the tools. They're not allowed to even buy the tools or the documentation to maintain their gear. It's really, it's a sickness. It's a disease, and it's all about money. There is in the marketplace, if you are an industrialist and you're watching this, there is a huge groundswell available for somebody that makes a simple fucking machine that just works. No computers or minimal computers, hydraulics, diesel powered, giver. So if I was on the board of one of these big places, I would be worried about somebody from China or somebody from India making something that people could actually fix, because they, partner, are going to eat your lunch. Allora, más problemo. This is an assembly. It's sold in assembly. No user serviceable parts inside, unfortunately. We don't see the clinction or the connectivity, any power transfer. It's just got some weeble wobbles on there, and the rest JFM, unfortunately. However, if we have a wee boo over here, it has to be affixed some way. And we can see there's a Jesus clip here, a couple of bearings, a plug, O-ring. So this would go through here, through here. This has to engage something. The power has to transfer. It's obviously not transferring from a bearing. And this Jesus clip here, that ain't putting any torque through it. So I think this might be threaded in. I think it might be threaded in. I think that if I took this tab off, I might be able to get at the insides. I don't think so anymore. I think we'll be able to loosen this off, and it might be right hand thread, it might be left hand thread, but we'll go in there, just ease it in gently, what for not breaking something. I'm stumped. I cannot get this thing to detouch. So, trip for young gamers. If you're taking apart, well, first of all, the prime directive in any mechanical, electromechanical, electro-hydraulic contrivance is, if it ain't broke, don't fucking fix it. So you'll see, and this happens to every single young fella, myself included, every one of my buddies. Hey, I just bought a new boat, or an old motorbike. I was running fine. I'm going to take the frigger apart and really tune it up and get it really going. Of course, the fucking thing never, ever goes back together. On account of the, you do not break the cardinal rule, the prime directive. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Okay, now on this channel, of course, if it ain't broke, we fix it until it is broke. Case in point, I do not have to take this apart. So what we do is we just continue on with what we can take apart and see if it comes to us. A lot of times what we do take apart, it ain't going to help us. But just the process of kind of zenning out and taking shit apart, you maybe figure out what the next step is. This one's got me licked, and not the 1,000-yard stare Superman pose while the better 3/4 does the business on me. Not that kind of licked, but proper licked. I don't know. If anybody knows how to get this apart, go ahead and the doobly-doo. We're going to wind her back up and give her some testing with the smelloscope. I kind of zoned out there and I set to thinking, and I realized I missed a step. Percussive maintenance. Duh. Hammer is an incredible tool. Now, people say that tongue-in-cheek, but it is an amazing tool, and whacking things a lot of times fixes it. Why is that, you figure? A guy asked me recently, so I'm going to tell you why. Because in electrical contrivances, there are mechanical connections. There are traces on the board. It's a mechanical system that delivers pixies to where it needs to go. So, if there's something that has high resistance in it, the circuit board or maybe the connection to the battery or whatever, when you give it a whack, that changes the geometry of the connection. Lo and behold, the thing works for a little bit until it goes back to its relaxed state and it craps out, because a wonky connection is never going to work 100% of the time. So that's what happens, especially in copper. Remember, copper work hardens. So as it vibrates and flexes around, eventually it's going to break. Of course, mechanical systems, percussive maintenance works awesome, because say you have a seized bolt. Now you're reefing on that motherfucker and it won't come loose. Some old graybeard comes along with a hammer, you know, X marks the spot, gives her a whack, all of a sudden it comes loose. What's going on there? Well, all those, remember, metal is, it looks uniform, it's not. It's all these little tiny grains, and a lot of the times grains get corroded and they grow together. You just need to break that bond. You give it a proper whack, lo and behold, it works. Same thing, a mechanical, something is stuck in one position, you give it a whack and away she goes. So percussive maintenance, it's not just a joke, it's actually a thing. And you escalate up to the proper thumb detecting nutfucker. This is actually a proper job for a dick in a vice. Wollen Sie mit mir kommen? Tap it in. Tap it, tap, tap. Oh. Ah. Hold the phone. Wait a second. Where am I? Look at that. That thing's a fucking neodymium magnet. What for would that be on? So is it just for picking up schmoo, or just decoration, or what? I have a feeling it's actually for speed sensing. However, how is it supposed to sense the speed if this is North and South Pole? Oh, tricky dicks they are. It's diametrically magnetized instead of axially. You see, there's two poles, North and South, on that same face. I ran into this problem trying to find these motherfuckers for my first ever YouTube video, where I used an automotive sensor and a Arduino to measure speed, rotational speed. And the whole deal is you need these special magnets that are diametrically magnetized in order to do that with a Hall effect sensor. I'll link in the doobly-doo, but check this out. I still got those magnets. Where are they? Yeah. See, check this out. Check this out. Huh? Huh? Stupid like a fox. I tip my hat to those wily Teutonic buggers. Fits like a cock in a sock. There's got to be a Hall effect sensor on there, and that is what's determining the speed. So there's feedback control on this. So when you set this, the microcontroller that says, hey, this is at position 23, that means that we want this thing to be chooching at position 23, and it reads that back through the magnet going past a Hall effect sensor and giving little pulses. It started to come here with that come hither look, and then hard did. I mangled it up as much as I want to suffer. I don't know. We must have just taken... Oh, Jesus H. Christ. Fuck. How about give me a jammer? This thing... Fucking bear trap. Right in your hand. Never seen that before. Normally the laminations are stuck real good. Check it out. They're delamming. And yeah, you can see the crack tighten up as we tighten the fastener. That's odd. Never fails getting it back together, and got another idea. EPDM double lip seal, low pressure. That would just be punched in there. I betcha they do the assembly and then this is the last thing to go on. The answer is wrong. It is a big roller bearing. Needle roller bearing. That's the racer. That bears directly on the shaft. Looks to me like a whole lot of nope. You see this? This is the human touch I'm talking about. They put a little detent in here. What for? For when you want to change the brush, you can lift up the preload spring and it goes right into this little detent. It's got a home, so it doesn't weeble flop all over the place. Very smart. Another thing, as a professional courtesy, they installed the bearing on the armature the correct way. In the correct orientation, so that you don't need to take the fucking bearing off in order to read the numbers. I mean, details, man, details. So if you're ever putting something together, a transmission or whatever, make sure, if at all possible, if you put a bearing on, make sure that the next guy can read it without taking the bearing off. That's what they call professional courtesy. With the carcass field dressed, we've just got this CT here, current transformer, with a burden resistor into the oscilloscope. Now the astute amongst us will note I'm wearing my Chinesium rated high voltage gloves. For the litigious amongst us, I'm talking about you, America. Don't do what Donnie don't does. And we'll make sure that's in ORF. This is going to take me a bit of bumble fucking around, so I'll go ahead and grab yourself another beer, take a piss. Contact. So here we have the current. It's essentially the torque being fed to this motor. And if we look here, change the time scale, we can see the inrush current that it's feeding. It's very smooth, no big huge spike. So the electronics are smoothing that out, and you can actually hear that. Starts off real slow, and then speeds up to here. So that's very nice. And then we have constant. It's measuring the RPM of the motor and keeping it constant, so under constant load. And notice there's no hunting at all. In some of the other tools, like the festering stool, that saw, when you heard it, it started up and it growled and it sounded nasty. Triac triggering. This has got to be pulse width modulating. However, as you can see, it is AC, but there's not that big growl and there's no hunting. There we have it. Proof, pudding, eating. She's a right booby jizzler. This is what you can do when you have the will to make a beautiful tool. This lasts a home gamer like me forever. If it does go wrong, chances are it's because I cut the cord, or the switch or actuator is busted, possibly the electronicals. Of course, you might wear the brushes out eventually. Now, having said that, with the label, really? I mean, low-hanging fruit, boys. Put the fucking label on square. Now, I reviewed a cordless type of this tool before from Will Fucky, and the problem I had was it was billed to Joe Consumer, me, as a do-all tool that will replace all the tools. It's not a do-all tool, a multi-tool. It's good at one or two things, and all the rest of the stuff, it sucks. Like sanding, come on. But it is good at getting in tight spots and cutting out, you know, baseboards and door jambs and stuff like that. However, it's tough to see past the bile in your mouth when the marketing wank makes you puke a little bit, you know, like leaves a dirty taste in your mouth. The fuckers at Fein, dirty fucking corpo drones. On the last time that I reviewed a Fein, it was a grinder, and what I did was I was going to send it to a guy in Kuwait. I gave it away. So there was a whole lot of fuckery involved, and I couldn't get it there, but a guy in Israel. So an Israeli guy was going to send a grinder to Kuwait. He was going to go out and buy a Bosch, and I would give him, it was kind of convoluted. Some Fein drone commented in my comments about, not to worry, I'll arrange everything, we'll take care of it. Months later, fucking crickets. Just totally dropped the ball. That aside, without prejudice, that aside, this is a Skookum Choocher. Thanks for watching. Keep your dick in a vice.